I don't know if you want to attach the resume to this or not, because it's got other details. But, oh, more. This is additional service information. No, this is just a repeat. I had that one deployment, and that was it. So that would be fine.
All right. We're here at the Vet Center in PGA, and we're with what is your rank?
Captain?
Captain Raul Diaz. And what is your birthday?
August 23rd, 1957.
Okay, and what is your current address that you'd like to use?
6650 West Indiantown Road in Jupiter, Florida.
Okay, and the person that's interviewing you is myself, Carlton Cartwright, and I'm with the Children's Coalition Incorporated. Okay, Captain Diaz, what wars and branch of service did you serve in? What was your rank, and where did you serve?
I'm currently in the U.S. Army Reserve Medical Service Corps, and I've been there since June of 2005, where I did a direct commission as a clinical psychologist, 73 Bravo. I was deployed to Iraq with the 113th Combat Stress Control Company. It's a medical company, and that was in 2006. So from September of 2006 until September of 2007. And I'm currently active reserve, drilling, and in training.
Okay. Were you drafted or enlisted?
Direct commission. Direct commission as an officer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, from the beginning. From the beginning.
From the beginning.
All right. So, what did you go through? ROTC, or how did
I
you?
went through OBC, which is Officer Basic Course,
Mm-hmm.
after doing a direct commission with medical personnel, as in other professions as well, like JAG, for example. If you have time as a civilian professional, such as myself as a psychologist, you can do a direct commission and commission directly into the officer corps,
Okay.
and that's what I did in 2005.
That was okay.
So therefore, I never enlisted. I commissioned
Now I understand. Where were you living at the time,
in Lake Worth, Florida.
and why did you join?
Oh, various reasons. After September 11th, well, I had been in private practice for many years, and I worked in police psychology and forensic psychology in a private practice. We served multiple law enforcement agencies, and the police officers and deputies, many of them were reservists, and they were deployed after September 11th, both to Afghanistan first and then Iraq. Many of them, when they returned, we would do the psychological screenings for their return to duty, and we began noticing significant increases in stress-related symptomatology that in many cases rendered them unable to return to duty until they got further help and treatment. And then, you know, my personal feelings about the attack on our homeland and so on, and I wanted to do more. So I wanted to contribute to the cause and also to help fellow Americans who were serving overseas. So therefore I did this, did this direct commission, and I'm glad I did.
Okay. Why did you choose the branch, the service branch that you joined? Why did you choose the Army?
Well, certainly I don't like ships, and I don't like flying around too much either. So I'm sort of a land creature, so I like to be boots on the ground. So that's why I joined the Army, for one, and also because it's the largest service branch, and it has the largest medical corps.
Okay. Do you recall your first days in service? What did it feel like? Tell us about your basic training, I guess. You remember your instructors? How'd you get through it?
Well, for us, it's for reservists in the medical corps. We did 2 weeks. At that time, it was 2 weeks at Fort Sam Houston in the officer basic course, and it was interesting. We certainly had a lot of classwork, but field work as well, where we spent several days at Camp Bullis, roughing it out, and we learned all kinds of things like assembling and disassembling M16s and the range and other military activities like land nav and so on and so forth. So it was very it was much of a challenge, but I think it was a very positive experience. And then shortly thereafter, after completing Officer Basic, the deployment paperwork and orders began to go through. So I completed Officer Basic in end of January of 2006, and I was deployed by June of 2006.
Okay. Which wars did you serve in?
Operation Iraqi Freedom, or Iraq.
Where exactly did you go?
To the international zone in Baghdad. That was the general area, although we had some assignments outside of that. But I was the officer in charge of the Baghdad International Zone Combat and Operational Stress Control Prevention Team.
Okay, do you remember where exactly, I asked you that, where'd you go? Do you remember arriving and what it was like? What was your job assignment? Did you see combat?
Well, we did not experience direct firefights. However, we certainly saw lots of the results of indirect fire. We were under indirect fire attacks almost daily at first in the international zone, being that it's a center of gravity, so to speak, in Iraq. And at that time, '06, before the surge, the insurgents and other factors were lopping rockets and missiles over the Tigris at us all the time. And there were many casualties and deaths. So we experienced quite a bit of that. What was it like when we arrived there? Well, as you may know, the troops are flown from Kuwait over to Baghdad, usually a C-17 or C-130. We were in a C-17, one of those huge aircraft, and I had never experienced a combat landing before. And no one really explained what it was. So the plane was flying up high and suddenly begins to spiral downward. And lands at Baghdad International after multiple spirals. So that was pretty rough and quite a surprise. So we stayed there in tents, and then the next morning they got us up early, my team, and it's time to go. So I'd never been in a helicopter before either. So we got into this Black Hawk helicopter and did our 15-minute flight into the international zone. That was quite an experience as well. No one ever explained flares to us either. And these flares that are shot out, I guess heat sensor type flares to avert any RPG attacks and so on. We notice these smoke things coming out, and oh well, we're under attack already. So I figured, hey, we're going to die the first day here. So that was quite an experience. But we landed there, and then we met the team, who was very happy to see us. We were replacing them, and they commenced to do the right seat, left seat, teach us what their mission was and their center there, and introduce us to all of the commands that we were going to be working with in terms of helping them deal with the stresses of the combat and operations. And then our mission commenced there in Baghdad.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you remember any of your instructors while you were in? Well, okay, I'm sorry about that. I regressed. Well, you did. So you saw casualties on a regular basis?
Yeah, we saw numerous casualties. We worked in the area of the, when we got there, it was a 10th cache, or combat support hospital, and it was a 28th cache. And this combat support hospital was receiving about 70% of the casualties in Iraq at the time. So the dust-offs, the medevacs were flying day and night over to the cache. And we assisted the cache, or combat stress hospital personnel, in dealing with their stress of that operation. So emergency room was extremely busy all the time, and there were casualties within the international zone as well. This is all known now. Of course, at that time it was not. You don't talk about that battle damage assessments, but it's been many years now, so we do know that, and the record does reflect that there were numerous casualties even within the international zone, both killed in action as well as wounded in action. In fact, we were there and we knew the first nurse, the first Army nurse killed since Vietnam, was killed within the international zone, or as the press called it, the heavily fortified green zone. And she was killed on July 10th, I believe it was, 2007, while walking back from the gym, about 15:20 in the afternoon. About 18 mortar rounds came in, and she suffered a chest injury and a sucking pneumothorax injury and died at the cash emergency room there. That's just one example. We had a soldier behind the what we called the embassy then. It was Saddam Hussein's palace, playing I think it was ping pong ball, MWR activities, morale, welfare, recreation, and a rocket came in, hit a tree, blew up, shrapnel killed him. Those are just some examples. There were numerous civilian deaths as well in that area, and it was pretty gruesome.
What were a couple of your most memorable experiences?
Well, the one I just described, certainly in a negative way, was a very memorable experience because we had worked with her. I didn't say her name, Captain Maria Ortiz. She was the officer in charge of the unit, what's it called? She was the officer in charge of the intensive care unit, basically, the ICU in the 28th Cache there. And they served, they served civilians. They served insurgents who were injured, and they would also be flown to the cache and treated. And ironically, even though she was helping to serve Iraqis and insurgents and those who attacked our troops, she herself was indirectly attacked and killed. So that was a horrendously difficult experience for the entire cache unit, for us as well. But we helped deal with that situation, and it was also memorable in a positive way when we met General Petraeus. In fact, there's the picture right here. If you might want to look at that later, of myself and General Petraeus there in Baghdad. And that was, we were about ready to leave there, and General Petraeus would come meet the troops. And that was quite a memorable experience. That was about August of 2007. In fact, I remember when I walked up to that stage, there were soldiers lined up to have pictures taken with them. He said, and Captain Diaz, and what do you do here? And I said, well, General, sir, I'm the officer in charge of the Combat Operational Stress Control Unit out here. And he looked at me and said, well, I'm going to need some of that soon, and shook my hand, and then he snapped a picture. So that was a positive, memorable experience.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Were you a prisoner of war?
No, I was not.
Okay. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Yes, in fact, there are two certificates here behind me. The Meritorious Service Medal was one of them for my efforts there as OIC in Baghdad. And I also have an Army Achievement Medal, I believe it is. Yes, the Army Achievement Medal was awarded subsequently for my duties at Fort Hood. In fact, I didn't put that in the paperwork, I should have, but after the Fort Hood attacks a little over a year ago, part of my unit, 12 of us, were deployed to Fort Hood and rendered crisis intervention to the soldiers and civilians who were attacked there, and those that witnessed those events. So that was awarded for that as well. Our unit, the 113th Medical Company, received the Meritorious Unit Citation. Of course, I've got the Iraq Service ribbon and several others that you get for being in the reserves and serving overseas, the Overseas Service Medal and so on, or ribbon.
Okay. Were you included in any battle planning?
In battle planning itself, well, of course, as a medical unit, we don't engage in direct combat activity. The planning has to do with our mission, with how the teams are split up. We also assess battle damage after certain attacks that occur, and then we pinpoint where they are and go out and talk to the units in terms of assessing what the if they had casualties, what type of stress injuries they may have, and so on. So that's the type of battle planning that a medical unit, combat stress control unit, does.
Okay. All right. The next segment has to do with your life in service and or at the front or under fire. How did you, during those periods, I know it's kind of broad, but that's the line of questioning, how did you stay in touch with your family?
Well, actually, our center, which was located in one of those 100-plus-year-old buildings in Baghdad in the international zone, had hard wiring. Of course, the centers do have computers and the DSN telephones as well. So I would use a DSN phone with my AT&T card, paid personally, with my funds, and I would call home just about every night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, good. How was the food?
Well, actually, the food was good. Aside from times when you had to use your MRE if you were traveling, the food in the DFACs, or the dining facilities, or what they would call mess halls, was very good. Lots of fresh salad, fruits, vegetables, and prepared meals. So the contracted KBR people did a wonderful job in providing the troops with all kinds of very nutritious food. Great,
great. Did you have plenty of supplies? Personally and professionally, in your case?
Yeah. In fact, I expressed and have expressed and will continue to express my gratitude to various organizations and individuals that would send care packages, just general care packages, to the troops, and we would receive many of those and share those with the soldiers we worked with. These care packages contained basically everything you needed. And also, in terms of supplies for our operations, our S4 maintained us supplied with what we needed in terms of the psych kit supplies, the psychological testing and inventories that we used in our mission, as well as the printers and all that we needed as well. So that was never an issue.
What was your level? Well, I shouldn't take it for granted. Did you feel pressure or stress?
Well, yes, of course. You always feel pressure when you are in a situation where at any point something can come out of the sky and blow you up, or a sniper can get you, and so on. But that you just deal with. You deal with that on a daily basis, and when the CRAM goes off, those sirens that go off, and the speaker announces something like incoming, 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 you have about 4 to 8 seconds to hit the ground and take cover. And then as you are in your full gear there, hunched in on the ground, holding your covering your head and with your helmet on and all that, you then just pray for the best. There's really no time to run to bunkers a lot of times in those situations, because that's how Captain Maria Ortiz was killed. She and her friend, they ran to a bunker. Now, of course, had they hit the ground, who knows what would have happened, but what you do is you hit the ground. So yes, you're under constant stress, both from those types of physical attacks. Then the mission itself can be stressful, because you're sitting listening to soldiers talk about how their buddies got their skull blown off by a sniper, or how their buddy got blown up by the IED, or the improvised explosive device, while they were on convoy, and so on. So that can certainly be difficult. deal with. But there's ways to deal with that stress in a positive way.
Good. Was there something special you did for good luck?
For good luck. Well, let me see. For good luck, we maintain contact with our unit chaplain. He would visit us on a regular basis and have services for us. Certainly, well, I carried a rosary, for one, and some little good luck charms that people had given me. Then just put things in the hands of God or the higher power, or however we chose to view that entity.
Right. How did people entertain themselves? Were there entertainers?
Well, actually, yeah, Kid Rock was in the area. Our area itself didn't get visited very much by entertainers because of course, the fact that it was a target and it was getting all these attacks quite often. But we did get a visit by the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders one time. Bill O'Reilly visited the cache and distributed his books. We didn't get to see him though because our email was down that day and we didn't hear of it in time. What else? Our headquarters, they were at Liberty Victory, about 15-minute flight away. They got multiple entertainers quite often. Of course, that was a concentration of about 50,000 troops at that time, so they got quite a bit. But we didn't get a whole lot of that. But, however, the morale, welfare, and recreation activities were numerous. Certainly the gyms were great. They did have movies, they had yoga activities for the troops, and of course in that area there were multiple pools and so on that you could access and use. Although we personally didn't do a lot of that because one of the pools got hit by a rocket one time. So it's kind of like, okay, you're relaxing in the sun, but what can come out of the sky and blow you up? I don't know about this. I think I'll... Let's do mission-related travel,
Okay.
and kind of forget that. So, but that's the entertainment was fine. I was really mission-focused, so I did a lot of work,
Right.
and there was a lot of work to do at that time.
Okay. What did you do when you went on leave? Where did you travel while in the service? Go ahead.
Well, during that deployment, the leave was home. I chose to go home for leave, so I had 15 days here at home, and enjoyed that with the family. It was actually, my last day of leave was Thanksgiving, so that was a very positive experience to be home for 2 weeks. I was only into the deployment about a few months at the time, September, October, November, and then it was leave time. I had to take leave time a little early because we gave the enlisted personnel first choice in getting their leave, and of course people tend to gravitate towards the middle of the deployment, so then the officers had what was left over, which was either the beginning, or towards the beginning, or towards the end of the deployment. I chose towards the beginning. So that was the lead time. I didn't have that 4-day pass that a lot of times soldiers take for various reasons. It was just too busy, and I just chose not to do that.
Okay. Where did you travel while you were in the service? Did you?
Well, we're looking at a reservist here, so
Okay.
travel was that deployment. Of course, I travel back and forth to my unit, which is in Garden Grove, California, and I do that every quarter for drills and other training.
Okay.
I have traveled to numerous places, as I mentioned, Fort Sam. I have traveled to Fort McCoy for some training. And in terms of overseas, it has been Baghdad. Along the travels, of course, we stop in Germany for an hour, and of course you go to Kuwait, and then you have some training there for a week to 10 days before going crossing the Burma into Iraq. So that's the extent of the travels.
Okay. Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual event?
Humorous or unusual event. Oh, let me see. That I could share here. Right, okay, let me see. Humorous event. Oh, oh, I couldn't share that one here. Let me see. Humorous event. Let me think about that for a while.
We can go back.
We can go back.
That's
to that.
okay.
It might come back to me.
We
You know, it's hard. It's hard because there's not a lot of humor. There's not a lot of funny stuff that
Gotcha.
goes on. But I'll think of one.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Here's another one you might want to address later on also. What were some of the pranks that you or others would pull?
The pranks that we would pull. Okay.
Was that
let me
maybe,
see.
I don't know, while you were in commission basic training? I'm not sure.
Okay.
Any of that stuff went on, or?
Yeah, let me see. Well, yeah, I remember there was one prank in the barracks in more recent training where a soldier was asleep, kind of just went to sleep real early.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody decided to wrap him up in toilet paper and hang up his uniform in the middle of the barracks along with his M16 and his helmet and everything. So he was all taped up and tied down when he woke up in the morning, actually.
Okay.
And everyone videoed that, and that was quite humorous. That was very funny.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got the photograph of you with the general. Do you have any other photographs?
Actually, they are out in the hallway if you want to look at those photographs, or I could... no, they're actually pinned in the display case
Okay.
out in the hallway if you want to take shots of that later.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. Do you know all the people in the photographs?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Fine. Okay. What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers? And did you keep a personal diary?
Actually, yeah, I did keep a diary of our daily experiences. I still have that at home. And I've often reviewed that come anniversaries of certain experiences. And what did I think of the soldiers? Well, you know, they become, the ones that you work with and the unit itself, they become family. Mm-hmm. They're comrades in arms.
Right.
They're brothers and sisters. So I have maintained contact with them, even those who have left the unit. There's certainly some contact that continues.
Right.
So that kind of sums it up. You know, the feeling of the comrades in arms and the band of brothers type feeling and sisters.
Right. Okay. Do you recall well, you're still in the reserve, correct?
Yes.
So I guess this question is not relative to you, but, well, anyway, do you recall the day your service ended? So,
Well, yeah, the day that the deployment came to an end.
Right.
That's how we could look at it for reservists. The
Fine.
service still continues,
Right.
but the service, the active duty service for that long-term active duty deployment ended actually September 10th of 2007 when I landed here at the local airport, Palm Beach International.
how long was your deployment?
The deployment was a total of 15 months. There was some train up that occurred early on at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, where the unit trained for about 10 weeks. And then we went out we went overseas then after that.
Right. What were you doing prior to coming into the service?
I was in private practice as a clinical psychologist here locally. As I think I had said earlier, I worked with law enforcement agencies doing police psychology and forensic psychology. I helped the troops, so to speak, the officers deal with traumatic stress and work with post-traumatic stress issues in police officers as well after they experienced critical events here which is very similar. You know, law enforcement out here, they are in battle conditions daily, and they have that hypervigilance as well. And a lot of what soldiers may develop in the battlefield, police officers experience that as well. So that triggered my interest in working with soldiers as well, seeing the effects of trauma and having a buddy killed, for example, or being under attack here in our civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did as a clinical psychologist in private practice for those years.
Okay. I see when you so you had your, of course you had your medical degree.
Actually, it's a PhD. It's a doctorate in clinical psychology.
Okay.
And with a doctorate in clinical psychology, after doing an American Psychological Association approved internship and a residency, which is post-internship for 1 year, then you can sit for the licensing exam, which is a healthcare professional exam as a psychologist in the state of Florida and in all states.
So where did you get your bachelor's from?
I got my bachelor's at the University of Florida.
Oh, okay.
Go Gators! And this is my coffee here.
Okay. In what?
In psychology.
Okay.
And that was in 1979.
Right.
They're in Gainesville, University of Florida.
Uh-huh.
And then I subsequently went to graduate school right away at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, one of the state universities there.
Okay.
And there I obtained my master's degree in clinical psychology and the PhD in clinical psychology as well.
Okay.
Subsequent to the training for the PhD, as I said, it requires a 1-year internship. So the internship was done at the University of South Florida Counseling Center for Human Development, VA Medical Center, and Florida Mental Health Institute there in Tampa. And after that internship, then I was hired as a psychologist at what was called Lake Hospital of the Palm Beaches here in Palm Beach County, where I started the psychology program, but also did my year of residency there, which is supervision post-doctoral completion for then being able to sit for the licensure.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so when your active duty was over, what did you do?
Well, when my active duty was over, I sold my private practice to my 18-year business partner, another psychologist locally here, Dr. Paul Bryan. I sold my practice to him and decided I wanted to pursue work with veterans. So I began the application process with the Department of Veterans Affairs. And in the meantime, I was hired at the Treasure Coast Forensic Treatment Center in Indiantown as a forensic psychologist as I was awaiting that process of application and so on. And there I worked for 13 months working with, what would be known as a criminally insane, and also those who have some kind of mental status at the time of the offense that has to do with mental illness that renders them incompetent to proceed through trial and so on. So I did that for the 13 months. Then, after numerous tries, of course, the VA system takes time. After numerous tries and numerous positions, and they called me for this position I have now, which is team leader of the Jupiter Vet Center, or Veterans Center, and we provide readjustment counseling for combat veterans and their families. And it's free. It's part of the Department of Veterans Affairs. And it is for any combat veteran from any service all the way back to World War II to help them readjust to civilian life.
Okay, excellent. Let's see. Okay, so just basically when your deployment was over, you were still in the Middle East, correct?
When the deployment was over, well, it's over when you get home.
Okay.
So yes, it was over September 10th of 2006 when I landed here at Palm Beach International.
And most immediately, as soon as you got back home, what did you do, the days and weeks afterwards? Did you take a break or go to work, or what did you do?
Well, actually, that's when I sold the practice. So then I began looking for work as a clinical psychologist in the area.
Immediately.
And immediately, and adjusting to being home and enjoying some downtime at home as well.
So you had all of your schooling, so you didn't have to go back to school for anything.
No, I didn't have to go back to school, thankfully.
Okay. So you never had the opportunity to use the GI Bill?
No,
For
I
that
have.
purpose?
I have not used the GI Bill.
All right. Did you make any close friendships while in the service?
Oh yes,
And
definitely.
did you continue those relationships?
Yes, definitely. Certainly, my mental health specialist is like a little brother to me now. Never had a brother, and he's like a little brother now. So we stay in touch, and in fact, he's still with the unit, and I am too. So then we see each other during training, and I see several other of the soldiers who I deployed with who are still in the unit as well. So certainly maintained good contact with them, and that certainly helped the readjustment process because, as you may or may not know, when you're not active duty, when you're active duty, you come back to a base, and you've got your family in the base or around the base and base housing and so on, and you got that community support. But when you are in the reserves, you come home. Like I landed here at Palm Beach International by myself. And in fact, my family, my poor wife, she was late, and I'm standing there with 2 duffel bags and my uniform, and the world was going by, and there was no one there, and it was really weird. It was really weird coming home. There was no support really, other than that telephonic or email or otherwise telecommunication with those buddies who were across the country. Our unit, our reserve unit, was what we call cross-leveled from 28 different states, and also Puerto Rico. So there were people from all over the country that trained together for those 2.5 months at Fort McCoy, and then went out to the war zone together as a unit. But when you come back, everybody goes home in all different directions. That support and that contact was very important. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And obviously, tell me about the veterans organization that you joined.
The Department of Veterans Affairs.
Well, no, you work for them, correct?
Yes.
Right. So you belong to any?
Oh, okay. Veterans organizations.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Well, certainly, yes. I joined the Veterans of Foreign Wars when I was going through the training, and I have a lifetime membership. And certainly, the Veterans of Foreign Wars are very active in providing assistance to veterans of all foreign wars. They have veteran service officers. In fact, some of them work with the VA system as well in terms of helping veterans with benefits questions and so on. I will become more active in the Veterans of Foreign Wars as I probably go into retirement. Now I've been very busy here with this position, helping veterans.
Right.
And since I'm still in the reserves, sort of my organization is my unit in the reserves.
Great.
So I see them for training on a regular basis as well.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think we discussed enough about we got enough information about your career after the war. We have that covered. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Well, did it influence my thinking about war? Well, that can certainly go very deep. We don't have a lot of time to go into all of that, but certainly war is not something that the military personnel decide to do. That's one thing. I think our society sort of got that mixed up during and right after Vietnam. So we follow orders. If war occurs and the powers to be decide that it is a necessity, then we follow orders and we do what we have to do to accomplish the mission. the mission out there becomes also looking out for your buddies and making sure that we're all safe as much as possible. And then certainly focusing on what we need to do and the work that has to be done. So the issue of whether the war is correct or not correct, or just or unjust, and so on, is really something that's beyond what we really do think about when we're out there, which is our mission and our survival, and doing what we did as a combat stress control company, and that's helping the troops. Okay. And what was the other part of the question?
I think you answered that. You answered that. If in a veterans organization, which we established you are, what kinds of activities does your post or association have? VFW, I guess.
Well, in fact, they have social activities, they have events that they have at the actual lodge, where family members, like for example on Veterans Day, they have events where they have meals and certain activities that have to do with recognizing important days. The VFW, certainly, I don't do this myself, but certainly it is an organization where you go to socialize at their particular lodges. I will probably do that later when I retire. I don't have a whole lot of time for that now.
Okay. Are there any reunions?
Reunions, in terms of our unit itself, that may occur in the future, but now our reunions are our training and our train-ups for future deployments and so on. So that's basically the reunion. We have our annual trainings, which last at least 2 weeks every year, and other trainings throughout the year as well.
Okay, last question. How did your service and experiences affect your life overall?
Well, I think it's been a vast effect, and certainly one can take very painful and negative experiences and turn them around and view them as character building, and view them as experiences that help you put the daily stresses of civilian life into their proper perspective. I mean, as civilians, many times we get worked up over little things like parking spaces and lines at supermarkets and you know, bills and so on, even though we have quite a bit here and we take it for granted many times. But you know, when you are subjected to the conditions of a war zone, and when you're subjected to the stresses of life or death situations every day, and you come back, well, you know, it's much easier to deal with stress in many ways if you have sort of digested it properly. If you recognize that, yes, there are normal reactions to being in those horrendous events, and it's important to talk about those, and it's important to share those with those you trust, and so on. And if you do have a certain dream or nightmare about certain situations, that's normal too. Don't suppress it, and realize that you just have to process that trauma and talk about it with people and share it. And that's why I got into this field also, because this field I am here as a civilian, because it helps the troops come in here and talk about their war experiences and realize that most of it is a normal reaction. So the perspective is, it's been much more positive. Certainly I got out of a private practice, which was great, but I felt I needed to serve a greater cause. Personally, it's been better, of course, to serve troops, and also better in terms of not running a business. Well, now I work for the federal government full-time as a civilian as well, and that's certainly, then you can focus all of your energies into serving the clientele, which in this case is troops. It's given me a much more positive perspective, really, and it's helped change my life for the better, despite the negative experiences and the traumas.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for the interview, but before we officially close, I want to know, is there anything else you feel like you need to tell us, anything that you may have missed, or anything else that you'd like to say?
Let's see. No, I think we basically covered everything. We covered everything, so I appreciate your time out here, and hopefully those that view this will gain something positive from it.
Well, we appreciate all of your work also.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Captain.